When personalism turns predatory, what are we even talking about? I'm talking about when you try to make marriage nice and then it ends up becoming the right to what I want. That's like the gift of love. You know what I mean? Becomes the right to self. Where did this come from? Our old buddy Dietrich von Hildebrand. He just mainstreamed this personalism before it was cool. And now the problem is it is weaponized. It's weaponized by the homos because you can say we can be gay now. And who's to judge? Because if procreation is secondary, because love wins, it's no-fault divorce. That is the huge problem, all right? And it's personalism that gave us no fault because, again, if we must respect the gift of love, then we have the right to receive love on our terms. That's where we're at, which is why it's no-fault divorce. So in this video, we'll learn why this personalism is simply legalized feminism and, how you can spot it so you can fight it versus just work with the system. So this is basically, oh, shoot, he's coming back again. What? Okay, so this is take 3 after our interruption. Okay. This essentially is part 4 of our Dietrich von Hildebrand series, The Father of Gay Marriage. All right. So we're going to, again, just kind of pick up where we left off and make a statement of Catholic fact and how this kind of is a launching point for this personalism. So I think this is a Aquinas quote. On the contrary, wherever there is indulgence, there must needs be some reason for excuse. Now marriage is allowed in the state of infirmity by indulgence, 1 Corinthians 7:6. Therefore, it needs to be excused by certain goods. Okay? So what we're saying is that the conjugal act in and of itself is not good, okay? It needs to be excused by procreation, and it can be allowed by indulgence for the remedy of concupiscence. Now, if that's true, then there is no right to self. There is no gift of self. There is gift of body, and it happens one time at the altar, all right? So that's like harsh, cruel, 17 kids and no love, eh? What are we going to do about that? Let's get the personalism going. Crank up the personalism machine. Enter Dietrich von Hildebrand. So AI explains that this happened culturally far beyond Hildebrand. The broader 20th century shift, companionate marriage, romantic fulfillment, expressive individualism, emotional authenticity. Sounds gay to me. Eventually reshaped secular marriage law. Yeah. By the time same-sex marriage debates emerged, the dominant public understanding of marriage had already become love-centered, companion-centered, fulfillment-centered. Great. Once marriage is socially defined primarily by mutual affection, exclusivity, and emotional commitment. Sound familiar? Like let's go to Retrovi. Let's go to Marriage Encounter. Let's go to the For Your Marriage website from USCCB. It's all the same thing. Same-sex couples can satisfy the definition almost as easily as opposite-sex couples. Yeah, they sure can. All right, so this is where we get the gay marriage from, stuff like I said. However, gay marriage is like nothing compared to the no-fault divorce because you have no contract because it's a love gift. It's not a contract. That's what they go, oh, don't get me started. I'll probably start more on this later. So this is kind of a divorce video too. We're going to get through this as good as we can. And again, just try to ramp up on some information. Now, let's go. Catholic personalists tried to avoid this conclusion. Of course they did, but they can't. Thinkers influenced by Hildebrand, JP2, tried to preserve complementarity, procreation, and sacramental symbolism. They went heavy on the symbolism. That's right, while emphasizing personalist love. Oh yeah, let's emphasize, and their argument became authentic married love is intrinsically embodied. Groovy, male-female complementary is essential to total gift of self. That's a nice assertion, but you know what? Can one homo give self to another? You know what I'm saying? And then obviously, if your marriage isn't going so hot, according to one person, then you're incapable of total gift of self. Obviously, bodily sexual difference is not accidental, but constitutive. Oh yeah, constitutive. So they would deny love alone defines marriage. Love alone does now define marriage because it means whatever you want. Exactly. That's you can't get away from this. This personalism will have to die, or civilization will have to die. There's no other way around it. Can't happen. This is all French Revolution trash. dressed up in Catholic love language, and it'll never work. The annulments will keep going, and marriage will keep going down. That's all that's going to happen, and eventually people are going to have to raise from the ashes actual nature, which is procreation primary, and that's it. And we're going to have to give up our NFP. But you know what? When there's no civilization left, people might be into it. All right. Conjugal love necessarily includes sexually so they're saying that. They're asserting that, but you can't really, because if love wins, love doesn't need babies. It just doesn't. You can assert it does, but anyway, again, the tension critics point, tension my booty. It's called yes or no. It's called law of contradiction or not. Nonetheless, critics, especially more traditional Thomists and canonists, sometimes argue that, listen, see, this is more AI saying, well, we have a little of this, but well, we have a little of that. No, we have truth or error. That's what we have. There is no you think this and I think that. Once the older right of the body framework was displaced. No, it's not an older framework. It's nature. It's as new, you know what I'm saying? And once communion of love became primary, it sure did. The conceptual barrier against same-sex marriage became less stable. Yes. So communion of love became primary, but the church will say, or the bishops will say, no, it's not primary. It's just a different expression and an updated, helpful expression. They're just putting fancy words on top of, we made procreation secondary because we want homo NFP. That's it. That's all you get. That's all there is. But they can't come out and say that. So I'm trying to tell you guys, you got to get out of the, what's that movie with the Truman Show, whatever that guy's name is, who does all the faces and stuff. That guy, Truman Show. Everyone's in the Truman Show. Hang on, I got to think of his name just a minute. Jim Carrey, remember the Truman Show? And he found at the edge of the water, the stairs out, it was all fake, the whole thing. But he's like, oh, okay. And so I'm saying that we're kind of all in the Truman Show right now is what I'm getting at, because everybody is telling you that procreation is primary when it's not. Everyone's telling Jim Carrey that this is real life. And he started figuring out it's not, but no one would tell him, except for now we have annulment proof trying to say, guess what? It's like the Truman Show. You guys are all in this fake world of personalism, and it's not Catholic, all right? Let's go back to our notes. Okay, so in other words, Hildebrand did not advocate gay marriage, but he's getting it anyway, basically. But the personalist turn may have unintentionally contributed to the intellectual environment in which modern same-sex marriage arguments became more persuasive. They opened the door because you took procreation away. And as I said in this video, this stuff becomes predatory. It's all an attack on the nuclear family. It's an attack on patriarchy, attack on basically patriarchal authority in the name of love. And now all the patriarchs are signing up for handcuffs to get this so they can get whipped by the feminists. And you're like, are you going to criticize JP too? Well, again, it's all it came from it's the rebel in disguise as love, and Dietrich is the main salesman for this stuff. So he's just so like canonized everywhere. I thought we've got, and I started looking into it, as I said. Now let's keep moving. All right. Historical conceptual alignment on marriage. Two thinkers were in lockstep regarding Catholic marriage theology and Archbishop Fulton Sheen, relationship theology, 3 to get married. Sorry guys, 3 to get married. No, it's 2 to get married, but this 3 to get married stuff is all about the personalism, and therefore marriage is no longer natural. It's supernatural. It's a vocation. It's all about people. They have to admit that this good of the spouses is the spiritual good of the spouses. Okay, no, marriage is locked in nature, and you can't get out of it. This is why we have to get back to nature. There's no other way. You start removing and dislodging nature from itself and calling it good, you invite whatever you want to fill in that blank with. So you want to be gay? You want to be no-fault divorce? What are we going to say against it? We're not going to judge. Ask the bishop if he's going to judge the separation of spouses. Who are we to judge? That's not my place. I can't go there. That's why Pope Francis says, who am I to judge? And everyone's like, wow, he's got us there. Because the personalism is now entrenched. We're in the Truman Show, baby. All right. Blah, blah. Both fiercely criticized the modern sexual revolution, arguing that true intimacy required a spirit of profound reverence and purity. No, it doesn't. Okay? A conjugal act does not require a spirit of anything. It requires a body and nature. That's all it is. Sorry, but we're trying to make it so much more nicey nice now. What you've done is destroyed it. You've given it no definition. By the way, anyone wants to get married, say, all you have to do is define marriage, and we can do it. No one can define marriage and say that personalism is legitimate. It doesn't work, because it's like defining a $5 bill where you can fill in the blank as to its worth. Can't be done. You cannot define $5. You can only talk about its deep personal meaning and spirit of profound reverence. Be fruitful and multiply. Catholic perspective. What's this? Oh, this is on marriage and the gift of children. Huh. All right. What does this have to say? Marriage exists in the first place for its own sake and not exclusively for the sake of the result that it produces. That is Timothy Gordon 101 right there. And you get it from Dietrich von Hildebrand. That's a quote from him. Marriage exists in the first place, primary purpose, for its own sake. No. Again, this is why everyone's just like, hey, ramp up the conjugal act. You know what I mean? And also, do whatever you want as long as it ends in the conjugal act, because you have the right to love. And we're going to satisfy our right to love by doing all sorts of Christopher West creative things, okay? With touching and... Dude, no. Sorry to break the news. All right. Significant thinkers such as Dietrich. I don't know if we're going to read all this. All right. Anyway, so this is just a book. We're going to go through some highlights. I'll go through the yellow highlights. Only a unit. This guy named Dewey Weird, whoever the heck he was. He was kind of some weird dude. He's some philosopher guy 200 years ago. Or maybe not even that long. Only a unitive act can be generative, he says. And only a generative act can be unitive. In that only it makes two one flesh. All right. This is more weird doublespeak. I'm going to push pause and think this through and tell you exactly what it means. Okay, boys and girls, I figured it out. Only a unitive act can be generative, and only a generative act can be unitive, in that it only makes what? A baby? No, makes two in one flesh. So they're saying, oh, that's more. Okay. One flesh union. Don't say that to me. I don't like that. I'm going to get triggered because I can't handle it. One flesh union. Don't say that. Don't say that. Wouldn't be prudent. Look, he's going, the conjugal act. This is this Dewey Weird guy. It's for itself. So we're trying to generate unity with it. And only a generative act can be unitive. So it's all about generating unity, because we're trying to generate the two in one flesh union. And the two in one flesh union is code for happy wife, happy life. That's what it is. That's all they're trying to say. But this is what Pius XII warned about. He's like, you're taking words and not using them the correct way. Obviously, two in one flesh is the metaphysical truth that you get married, you have one body, and it's, the heart and the head. You can't separate it, so you can't divorce and all that. Okay, so moving on. Here's Crisis Magazine. Well, here's my... Let's see. What does this say? This is something I just picked out of Crisis Magazine. Let's see what it... Oh, Regis Martin. You know what? He's at Steubenville. I like Regis, though. He's pretty good. He is. Here's my binary, and it leaves little room for maneuver. Either sodomy is a sin, in which case those who practice it need to repent and try, with God's grace, to get over it. Or if it's not a sin, then throw out the two testaments, Old and New, along with every other stricture of nature. and grace, going all the way back to Eden before and after the fall, leaving nothing at all left to forbid in the sexual realm. Yep, that's right. So he's like, look, sodomy is either a sin, but if it's not, everything goes. NFP is a sin, and if it's not, everything goes. Divorce is a sin against nature, and if it's not, everything goes, because you can't, if nature can't be judged, then objective sin is out. This is why Cardinal Burke, the Dubia brothers, asked Pope Francis, is there anything such as objective sin anymore? So Regis Martin is right. That's good. Okay. So we got a little more, this from Ed, I don't know who this guy is, but he wrote some things and I highlighted it in yellow, so let's see what it says. Marriage is grounded in God's purpose for creation. It's the two-in-one flesh union of man and woman. Okay, so this is some like nice groovy Catholic guy who's trying to sound cool and loving and stuff, whoever he is. Eduardo Echeverria. I'm going to put all this in the show notes, of course. Marriage and conjugal love are by their nature ordained toward beginning the education of children. There's more sneaky Gaudium et Spes stuff, all right? Marriage and conjugal love are by their nature ordained. So here we're saying that love has a nature. Marriage is ordained by nature, but also conjugal love is ordained by nature. So you have two essences, two natures. You know, you're feeling natural one day, have a baby. You're feeling a different kind of nature, don't have a baby. Either way, it's cool. Just like the homos can do that, right? And again, because conjugal love is now natural essence, if there's not enough conjugal love in your relationship, it's not real. You're not capable. You promised to give the gift of love, but now you can't give it because somebody's not happy. No fault divorce. All right? And that's where it comes from. We might as well call Dietrich von Hildebrand the father of no fault divorce. All right. Continuing. They talk about this is some kind of modernist book that's probably very Steubenville. All right, now what else does he say? Leading Catholic moral theologian, the late Germain, however you say his name, Grisez. I think this guy is not the greatest, as I understand. Explains why in Aquinas' view these two ends are natural. Really? Because before we only had one natural end. It's called a baby. Now we have two natural ends. Marriage is natural in respect to the primary end, since nature intends that children not only be brought, but this requires the lasting tie between the parents in which marriage consists. Okay, so here's what we're saying. We're saying this one flesh union, this whole super great relationship is also nature, because children, what does it say? Nature intends that children be born into a lasting tie. So when we start saying, okay, here, marriage is also natural in respect to this second end, all right? So now we are saying exclusivity and permanence are nature. No, they're not. They're just promises, okay? It's not that they're against nature, but they are not what nature is. Nature is babies, and you do have to raise them for life, but it's not the essence. It's not the purpose. Okay. So moving on. For Aquinas, the sacrament of marriage also has the purpose of properly ordering concupiscence to marriage's ends by virtue of the sacrament's healing grace. Therefore, Aquinas confirms Augustine's view that marriage is not good in itself. This is not just an Aquinas view or an Augustine view. It's nature. And this is all from the fall. Once you have the fall, you're going to have a lot of pregnancies. I will multiply your pregnancies, your conceptions, right? And also, because the conjugal act is such that it creates original sin, it needs to be excused by the goods. So you don't just make babies, you have to make Catholic babies, so that otherwise you're just creating more original sin. But only as an instrumental to the procreation and raising of children. Yes, nevertheless, they argue Aquinas' thought exhibits a certain complexity. No, it doesn't. It's very simple. The principal end pertains to the Aquinas coordinates marriage's ends with the goods of marriage. The principal end pertains to the human couple according to their generic nature. Generic nature, got it, which they share with other animals. Wait a minute. I thought that personalism was moving away from animals. I thought personalism means that we're like humans. We don't have to do things like animals. But Aquinas is saying, no, we share procreation with animals, and thus having and raising good children is a good marriage. The second end of marriage, which pertains to, was rejected, which pertains to, the second end of marriage, which pertains to, I can't remember what it says, was rejected in Gaudium et Spes, which formulated this relation as the natural ordering of marriage and conjugal love to procreation. See? Yeah. So anyway, the secondary end of marriage, which pertains to remedy of concupiscence and stuff, is not essential. That's the Aquinas view. It got cut off somewhere. But this was I'm going to try to make this bigger just a second. Primary, secondary was rejected in Gaudium et Spes. No surprise there. This is why everyone knows that Vatican II binds nothing new with faith and morals. So just because Gaudium says it, and just because Dietrich says it, and just because JP2 says it, doesn't mean it's nature, doesn't mean it's fact, it's not reality, but they're saying it, and everyone goes with it because everyone loves it. Happy wife, happy life. I don't have to have 17 kids. I can do a little NFP. I can be a working mom. I can get a divorce if I need to. Where do I sign? And I'll get an annulment too. Okay, which formulated this relationship in the natural ordering of marriage and conjugal love to procreation. Got it? Got it? Yes. So they're admitting love wins. Okay, personalism is love wins, which is why the homos grabbed onto it. This paper gives a short treatment of how Catholicism reached for its formulation. Okay, so they're going to tell all about that stuff. That's what this is. Augustine affirms marriage to person. Yeah. So there's more. I'm going to put all these in the show notes. You can read all this stuff. Ask me any questions about it you want, but we don't want to be here all day, so we're just going to skip through and try to find the yellow highlights, okay? Hang on a second. Okay, so here we go. The segue to magisterial teaching of Pius XI and Pius XII is well described by German Greece, National Catholic Distorter, approved as the dominance of a legalistic mentality. So this is something that the enemies of marriage will say. They'll always say, oh, that's legalistic. It's called natural law. You're calling natural law legalistic. So when you start saying these are legalistic, it's like Pharisee, it's like bad, it's like old dead white guys telling us what to do. That's what they'll say. Okay. The dominance of a legalistic mentality of a canonical definition of marriage regarding all issues about the meaning and value of marriage. Yeah, forget the value of marriage. We don't care. Or the meaning, nor do we care about that, because you can change meanings and you can change values. Code of Canon Law, the code defines marriage in terms of primary and secondary ends, the 1917 code. Yeah, the primary end of matrimony is the procreation and raising of offspring, the secondary mutual help and remedy of concupiscence. That's it. You can't change that. You can say anything you want. You cannot change the definition of nature. You can't. And this canonical light, viewers marriage, okay. The spouse's union of mutual love, since chaste marital intercourse expresses this value and meaning, it too has inherent significance. The two views incompatibility. Yeah, that's right. We have Catholicism up until 1965, or whenever you started bringing NFP into the picture in 1951. Now you've got nature is gone, personalism has taken over. Therefore, what you want is what marriage is. That's a different view. That's a different nature. These two views, incompatibility and plausibility of the second, as in the Vatican II version, led to a development in Catholic teaching. Hold on to your hats, folks. It's time for a development in Catholic teaching. What do we do in 2 + 2 = 5? We look for a more developed and heartfelt, truly deep understanding and way to explain that. That's what we do, because people want their math a certain way, because it's really helpful. It's really nice. And the Protestants have been doing it for years, so we can just do it ourselves in a different way. Okay, let's look for the next Yeah, this is all pretty cool, but again, I'm going to put this in the show notes because it's too long. Here. Still, in reaction against the canonical definition of marriage, again, guys, define marriage or don't define marriage. No one who says personalism is legitimate can define marriage, because you are saying love is essence. And you can just say, well, you use a bunch of fancy pants words to say we can define love juridically. No, you can't. Therefore, marriage is no longer juridical. Therefore, it's heart. Therefore, you can walk in and out of the marriage. You can walk in and out of your annulment. Divorce court. Who are we to judge? That's what happens. That's what happens. Hey, if people can do their own divorces, it shouldn't be too long before you can do your own annulments. Why not? Why not? There's no reason why you can't say why not. You can do your own. It's like, heck, it's never going to work. This is why are people abandoning marriage, especially Catholic marriage? It doesn't do anything. There's nothing there. It's like owning a driver's license that doesn't do anything when you get pulled over eventually. Why do I even get a license? Why would you pay for car insurance if it costs way too much and they never pay out? And it's like, I'm not going to get it. I'm just not going to get it. It's not worth it. Still, in reaction against the canonical definition of marriage and the corresponding legalistic mentality. No, save us from legalism. Some theologians, Herbert Doms, you've heard of him, he's not good, ascribed the primacy of Pius's teaching that marriage should be viewed more widely as a communion, companionship, and association of the whole of life. Yes, ascribe primacy. That's it. Okay, got it. This is what my brother-in-law always talks about. He's like, look, Casti Connubii 23 says we should view marriage more widely as a communion, companionship, and association of the whole of life. You can do that if you want. That's cool. But it also, in the next sentence, says, provided you do not, this is not used in the restricted sense, as in the legalistic sense, as in what the law is for raising kids. So when you get married, you say I do to the legalistic, minimalist legal definition. And when you get an annulment, they go to the legal definition. But now we're all Herbert Doms type dudes. I think he was in the 30s or something, 20s maybe. We're saying that, hey, it's a communion, companionship, and association of the whole of life. I have a right to communion, companionship, and association of the whole of life. And it better be dang good. That's good of the spouses. And if you can't give me that, I want out, because this isn't a real marriage. Sound familiar? Anyone out there? Yes, it does. Okay? And by the way, if that's what it is, be gay. And took his point about not restricting marriage to the having and raising of children. Yes, we can't restrict, because restricting it's not godly, and it's also legalistic. By regarding the latter as extrinsic to the good of marriage. Woo! What did I just hear? I heard that procreation is no longer essential, or it's no longer primary. It's extrinsic. So, therefore, hello, homo. And if you want a divorce, that's fine, because the kids are extrinsic. All right? They're not essential. It's not, the kids are, they belong to the state. They're doing their own thing. You got to be you, baby. So yeah, you got to find your love, man, to the good of marriage. And thus children are seen as accidental, optional, extra to marriage intrinsic meaning. Again, we don't care about meaning. Forget meaning. It's marriage intrinsic nature, marriage intrinsic, the institution thereof. Meanings are all over the place. What does this tweezer mean to me? I guess it could mean all sorts of things. Who cares? We know what it's made of, and we know how much it weighs, and we know where we can buy one and for how much and what you do with it. But it doesn't, I don't care about its meaning necessarily, all right? A little bit, but it's not essentially what it means. It's what it can do. Thus, children are seen as accidental, optional. Okay. This reaction evoked a reply in 1944 from the Congregation of the Doctrine of Faith. You guys know about that by now because I've talked about it in my past videos, but it's when, with the confirmation of Pius XII. So this is before Pius XII went sideways with his NFP saying procreation secondary is nature if you have a really good reason. But it's not nature if you don't. That's nuts. That's like saying sodomy is okay if you have a really good reason, right? Or abortion's okay if you have a really good reason. So if we can make nature okay, or if we can violate nature for a really good reason, all nature is gone. You can divorce for a really good reason now, right? It doesn't violate nature because nature's fine. You can violate nature for a really good reason. Therefore, eventually it becomes whatever reason I feel like. No more natural law. This is another reason why everyone has to get back to natural law or kill themselves. And who's trying to kill themselves? It's that one guy who just came out in the church, one of the bishops or the cardinals. He's like, we got to move away from this natural law formulation stuff. He said that in the news recently because they can't stand it. It's this you have to do. It's like, hey, yeah, you ate a couple donuts, you're a little overweight. If you eat 50 donuts a day for 10 years, you're going to need to do something drastic or you're going to be dead. Now, we've been eating this NFP malnourishment for a long time, and we're going to have to do something or we're going to be dead. It's coming to a head eventually here. Anyway, Pius XII declaring inadmissible the opinion of those who either deny the primary end of marriage. We already talked about this in the last video, but it's so good to go over it. Okay, hey, if you deny the primary end of marriage is generation and education of children, or teach that the secondary ends are not essentially subordinate to the primary end, but are equally principal and independent. So, if you say you don't have to have kids, no. If you say that, or procreation is a primary, it's no. If you say that the secondary ends, all this love stuff, can be primary or equally principal and can be independent, so I can seek love independent. No. What is NFP? It's seeking love independent of the primary end. What is divorce? It's seeking love independent of the primary end. You're just saying that secondary end, I'm using it first. This isn't love. I don't like this. I'm going to go find love somewhere else. The primary end, procreation and education of children, aren't my primary ends because that's not love. Bye-bye, family. See? Although this statement does not give the whole case. Here we go. All right. Now, okay. In summation, says Greases, however you say his name, there remained only one alternative. Oh, I can't wait to hear. What is the alternative? How do you solve this 2 + 2 = 5? How do you solve these two unbridgeable things? Procreation primary versus procreation secondary. What are we going to do, Grease says? There remained only one alternative: to treat parenthood. Oh, there we go. This is kind of cool. They're going to treat parenthood as part of the communion of married life. So what we're doing is we're not saying, okay, let's say marriage is like, all right, these 3 things. Here's our 3 things that marriage is: procreation, permanence, fidelity. Okay, 3 things. So what we're going to say is we're going to say in one of these things, we're just going to insert good of the spouses, and we're going to make it essential that way. So we're going to take good of the spouses and we're going to stick it inside of one of these, and we're going to say, there it is. And you're too much of a dummy to figure it out. So we sneak it in. It's like Trojan horse. How do you get love into the castle, the fortress of marriage? You put it in a Trojan horse and you knock on the door. And you go in that way. And you say, it's all part of it. Love, God is love, marriage is love, love and marriage can't have one without the other, all that stuff. Treat parent is part of the communion of married life. So they treat parenthood. So this is what they're saying. They're going, look, we're going to sneak good of the spouses in the back door, and we're going to piggyback it on communion of married life. So if you don't have a good marriage, quote unquote, you can't do what is primary, which is raise Catholic saints. Therefore, your marriage is invalid. Someone's incapable. No. You have to agree to raise kids Catholic. How good a job you do is between you and God, but that's the law. You have to say, I will raise my kids. I will not raise my kids if I'm Catholic to a different religion. You're allowed to separate if someone does that. But if they're not a good Catholic, that's not that doesn't destroy anything. It's not good, but it doesn't destroy anything. And leading up to Vatican II, that is precisely what some thinkers did. Yeah, because they have to figure out something. It's like, what do we do with all these illegal aliens? Let's not call them illegal. Let's call them something else. I turn now to Dietrich von Hildebrand, our hero, Herbert Dewey Weird, who, although not Catholic but Reformed, engages in thought of Hildebrand and Pius. Yeah, that's the way. Who is it? Christopher West likes to talk to Protestants a lot too. And Carol Wojtyła, future JP2, prior to Vatican II. Some thinkers in this tradition, baby, such as Dietrich von Hildebrand, affirm the primacy of love in the marital communion. They're just violating nature, violating Pius XII, but Pius XII could not keep a lid on it. They're just calling it. They're like, it's too late. And then Pius XII caved when he said, love wins via NFP 7 years later or whatever, when he wrote this thing. Marriage exists in the first place. Okay, this is this famous quote again, which Timothy Gordon has jumped all over, Mr. NFP himself. Marriage exists in the first place for its own sake. Don't say that. No, it does not. Remember at the beginning of this video, marriage exists for procreation. It must be excused by procreation. It's not that otherwise, if it doesn't have to be excused, yeah, kids are secondary. Hello, Planned Parenthood. And divorce is like Planned Parenthood. That's all it is. Hey, you want to avoid pregnancy? Great. You want to avoid divorce? Great. But if it's push comes to shove, get the abortion or get the divortion, because it's secondary. Marriage exists in the first place for its own sake and not exclusively for the sake of any result that it produces. I don't know who's quote. Oh, is that a Hildebrand quote? Yikes, that's bad. That's crazy. And not exclusively for the sake of its. So these guys, this is sick, man. This is bad stuff. George Bush wanted that kinder and gentler government. And what do you get? I'm here from the government. I'm here to help. You get socialism and you get all kinds of bad. When you start trying to make trying to make marriage kinder and gentler, you get predatory marriage. This is why a lot of guys are red pilling. I'm not falling for this anymore. We're not going to sign in blood for a contract that can just be ripped out anytime. And that's what you get with the personalist contract. Hold on just a minute. Hildebrand adds, so this is a Hildebrand quote, "No other earthly community is constituted so exclusively in its very substance by mutual love." Marriage is not constituted in any by its come on, bro. But people were so like, wow, this sounds so good, it must be true. Just like when Christopher West or JP2, they're all this super duper fancy footwork, the really nice words. It's like, wow, this must be true. Kind of like when Timothy Gordon throws a lot of Latin and big words at you. You're like, I don't know. It must be true. Okay. No, you got to figure out what they're saying. So anyway, he's playing on people's desire to try to square Catholicism with the love is in the air thing rather than keeping it with nature. All right. He advances the thesis that the meaning of the sexual act in marriage, given that marriage is in itself principally a communion of love, may not be restricted to being a mere means of procreation. Oh, well, okay. So if you want to use it for procreation, fine. But if you don't, that's fine too. Hello, NFP. Hello, divorce, because divorce is the contract. That's what, but you say contract, everyone will say, no. No contract. Fine. Then hello divorce if you want. It's just a way to pursue love. That's all it is. Okay, maybe restricted as a mere means of procreation. So the meaning of marriage, as I said, I don't want to hear about meanings or perspectives or thoughts, visions, views, whatever you got. there's nature, there's definition, and there's essence. Take your meaning and do whatever you want with it, but don't make it marriage. So the meaning of marriage, conjugal love, and its interpersonal and unitive aspect. There we go. There we go. Meaning and aspect. Two cotton candy words that don't do jack, but people bet their life on them. It's so lame. That's what Humanae Vitae does. You got nature, well, we got significance, and we got aspects. That's what we got. We have. Anyway, so the meaning of marriage, conjugal love, and its interpersonal and unitive aspect is good in itself. More Timothy Gordon, the conjugal act is good in itself. No, it's not. No. There's a hill to die on right there. And Timothy Gordon says, be choleric if you know you're right, if it's a matter of doctrine. So when I tried to, he did unblock me on Twitter. That's good, on X. I'm trying to get him to unblock me on YouTube. We'll see if he gets that far, hopefully. Okay? Because he doesn't want people to wimp out. He wants you to stand up. All right, buddy. No sweat. Its meaning is primarily, oh, get this, you'll love this. Its meaning is primarily the realization of the sublime communion of love, in which, according to the words of our Savior, the two shall become one flesh. So here we go. Look, God says marriage is love. It's right there. Okay, what are you going to do about that? Well, no. No, this is why we have to go with what the church says. Primary purpose is procreation. But you can say your meaning is all kinds of stuff. And sublimity, hey, how sublime is your love? Well, if it's not sublime enough, if our communion is lacking sublimity, then I guess it's not real, truly, and all that fun stuff. Okay, let's keep going. Let's find our next yellow highlight, see what we got to talk about. Okay, yes, marriage is more than about sex. It is also about nothing. Oh, this is stupid. In other words, bodily union, sexual intercourse, and not just fleshly. This is so stupid. This is written by a Protestant. Not fleshly contact, rubbing bodies together. That sounds so lame. Okay, is someone knocking on my door? Just a minute. Okay, I guess not. In other words, okay, so they're saying that the conjugal act between a man and a woman, uniting biologically or organically in the bodily dimension of their being, as in physical, as in natural, is uniquely fitting for creating a bodily communion of persons that is generative. Is unique. All right, fine. Thus, only a unitive, this is what he says before, only a unitive act can be a generative act, and only a generative act can be unitive. That's the same. That's just it's so stupid. So they're basically saying something called unity, this community of persons, is the purpose. Nothing new here. We're trying to make homo good. We're trying to make contraception good. We're trying to make divorce good, and we're trying to get remarriage good. That's all this is. You trash nature in the process. You trash objectivity, objective sin, and definition. And what you have is the spirit of Vatican II to come in and just clean everything up by making everything however you feel. And eventually that's all going to crash and burn, and people are going to say, forget this. Forget it. Now, let's see. What does this say? Just a minute. Hang on a second. Okay. If only a unitive act can be generative, then no kids would be produced from an invalid marriage. That's what I said. Right. So if this is the same thing with the purpose of marriage, if you can get annulments because there wasn't enough love, then God did not create procreation primary. He created, in other words, if marriage is for kids and you can have kids without being validly married, then marriage is not for kids. It's for love. And then kids, it's obvious the annulments are fake, is my point. Because if marriage, if only a unitive act can be generative, then God would make sure there wouldn't be any kids. Then you would have sterility. If it's not unity, if it's not unitive, it would be sterile, because otherwise you'd be having all these incapacity annulments. Hopefully I'm clear on what I'm saying. Let me try to reformulate what I'm saying in a soundbite. I've done a video on this. You can tell if your annulment is fake if you had kids. There you go. If they say you had an incapacity but you had kids, that's a lie. It's proving that it's not true. Because the purpose of marriage, if the purpose of marriage is kids, if God allows kids to come from invalid marriages, and he says you need more capacity than that, then he would make ununitive acts sterile, which he does not, which proves that unity, or whatever you want to call it, is not essential to marriage. That's just like nuts and bolts right there. Okay, let's see, what else we got? They go on and on and on. Again, you can read all this in the show notes. Now, returning to Hildebrand, we find that he has no intention of detaching the bodily union of married love. There it is again. Married love. See, they always put it first. The one flesh union, whenever you hear this union stuff, they're just saying this partnership stuff. They're sneaking it in the front end, and you don't even notice it. The bodily union of married love from the essential unfolding of this act. That is so crazy what they just said, because essence is nature, essence is legal definition. So they're talking about the essential unfolding of this act. They're using words. It's like the devil himself writes this stuff. An essential unfolding of this act in the primary end of procreation. What did I just say? I don't even know. Returning to Hildebrand, we find that he has no intention of detaching the physical union of married, basically detaching the marriage act from the essential unfolding of this act in the primary end of procreation. So he is saying that you got to have procreation, but he doesn't have any intention, because he's saying that love is primary. That's all he's saying. Indeed, general connection between procreation and the communion of love must always be maintained, even subjectively, at least as a general possibility of this act. This is Humanae Vitae 30-something years ahead of schedule. Maybe more, right here. This inseparable unitive and procreative significance. This is exactly where it comes from. It's crazy. Again, sign is one thing, but nature is another. End is another. Purpose is another. So he says the inseparable connection between procreation and love, even if it's subjective, okay, must, that means law, that means nature, that means divine law, okay? So this is what I'm saying. This is like heresy stuff. Humanae Vitae, when it says the inseparable connection between the significances, it's technically, I guess you could say, true, because you can't define significance and what the separate. No, procreation alone is primary. That's why they don't talk about it. That's why they don't say. They careful use of words, man. These guys are like slippery, but it's gonna lead to trouble. It's like you can call a wetback all sorts of other words, but at the end of the day, that's what they are. You know what I mean? And it's like you change a lot of public opinion, but that's what it is. Love is the primary meaning of marriage, according to the creation, just as the primary end, according to creation, is the begetting of new human beings. Okay, so this is more like wishful thinking. We're going to read Genesis and we're going to say the reason why they left their father and mother is for love. No, for this purpose, and that purpose is procreation, and that's what Trent said. And it's obvious, because what do men and women do? Procreate, okay? Doesn't have to be. It's not just a love thing. Although Hildebrand leaves unexplained here the relation between meaning and end. Ding, ding, ding. They're going to keep it unexplained because there is no explanation. Just like when you go to Cardinal Burke and you say, what is the essence of marriage? He says, we have no explanation. It's like his exact words. There is no accepted description of the essence of marriage. We can't. We won't. We don't. Because we're going to have to admit all these annulments are wrong. Our NFP is wrong. And if we do that, we're going to be incinerated by the crowds. No, that's the problem. No one will touch it. Okay? Hildebrand leaves unexplained the relationship between meaning and end. It is clear throughout his book that the relationship is such that the end and others are to be realized. That means must be realized on the basis of marital love as its integrating principle. What did I just say? It's clear throughout the book that the relationship is such that this end and others are to be realized on the basis of marital love as its integrating principle. Okay, so therefore that love is essential. The other things are not, but love is. That's it. That's all they're saying. Put differently, marital love, as in the conjugal act and the way you feel about it or something, is the integrating principle of the intimate interpersonal two-in-one flesh. Oh, shut up. This is total goo. That's all it is. And people, this is why this marriage prep is so lame, and all these regular blue-collar guys are like, what is this crap? And she's like, freaking amazing. I can work and not have all the kids. And I can divorce if it's not intimate, personal enough. Two-in-one flesh union. Wow, that's so great. That's like in the Bible and stuff. Put differently, marital love is the integrating principle of the intimate, interpersonal two-in-one flesh union. Wow. In which husband and wife reciprocally complement one another in their mutual self-donation, bringing to fulfillment the meaning of marriage, and in these ends, offspring, fidelity, mutual help, and sacrament. Wow, that sounds so magical. Where do I sign? You don't, it's so stupid. All they're saying is love wins, go gay. That's all that says. That's all that says. Do contraception. Divorce without sin. That's what that stuff says. Family destruction. That's what they're saying. But this is what the devil does. He comes in the front door, not with a big, red tail and horns and everything. He's like, he comes in as the apostle of love, man. Intimate, interpersonal, two-in-one flesh union, of course, making it number one. Oh, this is so retarded. Okay, so anyway, sometimes the Protestants kind of admit, but even the Catholics are doing this. Pious, now we're all weirdos now. Even Timothy Gordon, he got weird. He's got, because he tries not to, but he can't. That's why he doesn't want to. I don't think he wants to talk about it. I don't think he doesn't. He says it's a waste of time. He calls the NFP topic an intellectual turd, a waste of time. Well, guess it's hard to argue with that, huh? Can't argue at all. It's just a waste of time. Pius the 11th, I guess, explains the blessings of marriage in terms of three goods of marriage: offspring, faith, which is exclusivity, and sacrament, which is permanence. Those are the three goods. It is clear from this passage that husband and wife should seek to realize these goods according to its integrating principle, which is conjugal love. Remember when I said marriage has three things? It has procreation, permanence, and exclusivity. So how do we get love in here? Because marriage is three things. Nature, right? Permanence, exclusive, and procreation. Those are the three goods of marriage. Always been, always will be. Now, how are we going to get interpersonal love in the essence? Because the rest of that is just secondary. Interpersonal love flows from the three things. But now we're going to say, no, interpersonal love is the three things. So how do we do it? We take procreation, or whatever thing you want. Even you can do fidelity. They call fidelity. They call, exclusivity. They say, no, that's not just exclusivity. That means like total deep exclusivity. So they're saying they should seek to realize. Husband and wife should seek. They don't have to, but they should seek to realize these goods according to its integrating principle. So you have to say conjugal love is in them, right? So conjugal love is number one. It is the essence. Do you know what is secondary? Permanence, exclusivity, and procreation are secondary, not primary anymore, because conjugal love is primary and the rest of these things flow from it. So if exclusivity is waning a bit, or permanence, you're feeling a little bit divorcey, it's cool, man, because that means there's no love there, and that means the love isn't there anyway. So you just divorce and you have an invalid marriage. That's what that means. That is what that means. This is why I'm saying that what is the title? Oh, when personalism turns predatory, then the person that isn't like digging this marriage, they go predatory. They just call up the state and they get their the priest says, sure, go for it. We don't have anything to do with marriage on that level. They say, take the house, take the kids, give me the money. Fine, I'll take it. That's exactly what happens. Wait a minute. While I'm thinking about this, let's talk for a second. Now, the Bible says that for women, her desire will be for her husband, right? Yes, it does. And that means that she will want to wear the pants. She will want to dominate. She will want to control. She will want to take over. This is after the fall because she was the first to sin. Okay, so her punishment is she has to now obey her husband, but she is not going to want to do that. So this is why I say right here in my little name tag, it says no fault is his fault, because since we have love is now is primary, whatever, she can go ahead and take over because she has the priest is like, hey, who am I to judge? And the state is like, yeah, we'll take your stuff because we're motivated to, because we get the more stuff we take, the more money we get. That's how it's. The federal government gives money to the states for that reason. They try to get as much out of the dad as they can. Why are so many divorces filed by the women? Why? 80%, whatever. Why is that? Because of the fall and what it says about women after the fall. Their desire will be for their husband. They're gonna take those pants. That's what they want. And if they're told they can, they're gonna do it. In the name of love, baby. That's what they do. And the priest is like, who, me? And the state is like, no problem, honey. We'll give you everything you want, and then you can get a shiny new husband and take all the stuff, and he'll pay for it. The guys are like, no, not doing it. Okay, this is why we got to get back to nature. You must restrict marriage to nature. Once you expand it, trying to make everything loving, it goes predatory very often, or it goes homo. All right, back to our shoe. Dewey Weird, the weird guy. Okay, yeah. Okay, Dewey Weird remarks. This is some weird Protestant guy from, who knows, Amsterdam, like 150 years ago. This encyclical, frankly, it must not be that long ago. I think they're talking about Casti Connubii. This encyclical, frankly, assigned primary of honor to married love in a Christian marriage. Oh yeah. See, they're saying, look, love is like really great and everything. Yeah, it says it, but it says you can't. Marriage must be operated under the restricted sense, the legal sense, the legalistic sense, if you're going to define it, all right? So marriage is a lot of cool stuff, but not legally. It's not a lot of cool stuff legally. Now they're trying to make it that. All right, continue, go. There's a lot in here you can read, but I just kind of highlighted some stuff. Dewey Weird gratefully acknowledges that von Hildebrand voices the biblical Christian conception of the conjugal bond as a typical and incomparable institution love union between husband and wife, and as the expression of the eternal love Christ towards his church and his bride. Woo! Doesn't that sound great? That's total Protestant. Hello, Hildebrand. Yes. That's why they all say marriage is a covenant. All Protestants say that. All of them. They never say marriage is a contract. And now the Catholics are just as Protestant because love got in the room from NFP. Thank you, Pius XII. So he's saying the biblical Christian conception of the conjugal bond, whatever the conjugal bond is just that which exists. It doesn't have anything to do with how you feel, but they say, no, it does. As a typical, just like you're saying, born-again Christian, what does that mean? Well, depends on who you ask. What's a bond? Depends on who you ask. What's conjugal love? It depends on who you ask. As a typical and incomparable institutional love union. So now we're saying that the love union is the institution, as in the legalistic, because institutions have legal definitions and boundaries. So the institutional love union between husband and wife and the expression of the it's an expression of the eternal love of Christ toward the church and as his bride. So husband's got to love, but they don't talk about her being submissive too much because that wrecks the unity. That's the other thing I was trying to tell Tim Gordon about. He says you must have unity. He doesn't really define it, but he says you got to have unity. And this is why everyone talks about this symbolism, love. Christ loves his church. She has to obey because she's the bride. And if you do that, there's no... so it's like, oh, it's all this servant leadership baloney or whatever. Okay. fine. I think I beat that up enough. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I guess so. Okay, so not entirely taken with Hildebrand's book, however, Dewey Weird also claims that Hildebrand detaches the inner meaning structure of married love from its temporal biotic foundation in the organic difference between the sexes. Well, there's a mouthful of that. That's going to take some real brain bashing to figure out what he says. Let me keep reading. I'll go back to it. But this is simply not the case. Hildebrand explicitly asserts the contrary. The special character of conjugal love is furthermore marked by the fact that this love can only come into being between men and women and not between persons of the same sex. Okay. All right. So hold on a second. Okay. So Dewey Weird the Protestant is stating the quiet part out loud, that when Hildebrand says love wins, he is detaching biology from love. And he's saying the structure of marriage is now detached from biology. All right? That's what he's saying, which means you can be homo. They're saying, because it's kind of obvious, yeah, that's right. But Hildebrand says, no. The special character of conjugal love is further marked by the fact that love can be only come into being between a man and woman, not between persons of the same sex. Okay, but he doesn't say how. He doesn't say why. He just says, hey, no, you can't be gay because you can't. Because, you can't. Because of love, and, that's why. Okay? Still, Dewey Weird rightly holds that marriage is what? Marriage, okay. Marriage, intrinsically qualified moral community, is a moral community of the love for the duration of the common lifespan of two persons of different sex. Wait. All right. Well, whatever. Hang on. The ethical aspect of this love community being its qualifying function may not be detached from, in Dewey Weird's words, its biotic foundation as the organic difference between the sexes. Yeah. So you can't. He's saying you can't take love away from nature. Both these guys have a problem, because if you start making love essential, then it's going to make nature secondary. Nature is optional. Nature optional. That's all it is. Love essential, nature optional. Okay, keep continuing. Go to the next highlighted part. See if we got something exciting to say. Just a minute. It's got to be here somewhere. Let me push. Oh, here we go. Still, Dewey Weird insists, on the other hand, it is not possible. It is not possible to detach. Okay, so this is Dewey Weird. Not possible to deduce the essential internal structure of the marriage bond from the cosmic purpose of propagation. In other words, divine law. In other words, the cosmic purpose of propagation, that's nature. It's not possible to deduce the essential internal structure of marriage from the cosmic purpose of propagation, as was allegedly done by Thomas Aquinas. Wait a minute. It's not possible to basically conclude that the eternal structure of the marriage bond from the what? I can't. Hang on a second. I got to push pause. Okay, so I guess the Dewey Weird guy is saying he can't quite see, just because he's Protestant, whatever. He can't quite see that you have to have procreation, and that it's natural law. Okay, because he doesn't think it's natural law. He's saying it's a cosmic purpose. Yeah, they say that he thinks that increase and multiply is a command. No, it is a blessing. It is not a command, and it's not a precept in the New Testament anymore. Anyways, okay, from the cosmic. Okay, is done by Thomas Aquinas. This traditional universalistic construction, as in natural, as in it's never changing. This is because Aquinas is like marriage never changes, it's universal. Necessarily results in an eradication of the boundaries between the marriage union, as in the lovey-dovey feeling, and the family relationship. So he's saying that the lovey-dovey feeling and the great vibes and the walks in the park and eating popcorn and laughing together and sharing each other's toothbrush and all that stuff, and helping the kids out really nicely, and everyone's getting along, and all that great stuff. He's saying that Aquinas says that is separate. That the family relationship is separate from the conjugal act. Okay, which it is legally. Baby's permanence and exclusivity. That's it. Everything else is gravy. Charity perfects nature, but charity is not nature. Okay, the eradication of the boundaries between marriage and family, marriage and love, he's saying, he argues, implied by Aquinas' attempt to deduce or reduce the essential internal structure of the marriage bond from cosmic purpose of propagation. The way he's wording this is just so goofy. It's hard to figure out. This is evident from Thomas's statement that posterity is essential to the marriage bond. Hello! It's in Tobit 8:7. It is essential because it's the only purpose. Yes. Okay. If it is essential to the marriage bond, then that means the marriage bond, whatever that means, the structure of marriage, then other things are not essential. They're the other purposes. There's only one essential purpose. But now they're saying the essential purpose is love. Such a construction must naturally restrict itself to a deduction of the general institution of marriage from the purpose of procreation. That's right. Restrict itself to purpose of procreation. Hello, Timothy Gordon. That is correct. You must be trying to get pregnant. You know what I'm saying? As in versus trying to get something else. But in its application to the factual relationships of marriage, Thomas's view leads to constructions of a very artificial and internally contradictory character. Oh, come on. What are you talking about? We need only mention his explanations of the relation between the individual act of sexual uniting and the objective procreative purpose. Thomas concedes that sexual intercourse in a barren marriage or in a general such that which is not carried on with a concrete procreative intention is morally permissible. But then it will not do to seek the inner essence of the conjugal institution in the aim of propagation. Hold on. So they're saying procreation is primary, but then he goes, then it will not do. It's just not cool to seek the inner essence of the conjugal, to seek love, self, bonding, whatever you want to call it, unity, in the aim of propagation. In other words, dude, we're trying to get pregnant, but that's kind of cramping our style. Or, you know what I mean? If we have to try to put love secondary to babies, that's going to really mess us up. And homos agree. You know? It's like, no. And so does NFP. So this is like contraception. This is why when you put love first, family, babies, kids are secondary, and they're not nature anymore. They belong to the state. You think you have education rights to your kids per divine law, per natural law? Think again. Your spouse can just give those to the state, and the state says, yeah, we're in charge, and you have nothing. And the bishop will say, well, I guess that's the way the ball bounces. We have nothing to do with that. Natural law, I never heard of this stuff. There's what they say. Just no comment. Then the internal okay, continuing. All right, Dewey Weird's main point is right. Marriage isn't merely for having children. Okay, see, this is the world talking. As if to say that it is merely a means to a procreative end. Oh, really? Indeed, it is precisely for this reason that in 1936, as I noted above, Dewey Weird already expressed his appreciation for the work of Catholic philosopher, wait for it, Dietrich von Hildebrand on marriage. Hello? All right, Dewey Weird is a weirdo from Euro, Protestant. Cool? And he says, it ain't procreation primary. And who does he love? Who do you love? Dietrich von Hildebrand. Woo! This is from Carrie Wito's Reflection on Marriage. JP2 rejects the idea that marriage is a means to an end. Ah, you think? Maybe? He doesn't come out and say it, but the Protestants will admit it. Just like all non-Catholics will say, it's Catholic divorce and it's Catholic contraception. The Catholics are like, no, it's much more deep. Yeah. And hence, he agrees with Dewey Weird's point as well as Hildebrand's. So, JP2 says procreation secondary. And as I've been telling you kiddies, you want to read Love and Responsibility or Theology of the Body. It's 1,000 pages of procreation is secondary. That's all it is. I just told you the whole book right there. That's all it is. And hence he agrees with Dewey Weird's point as well as Hildebrand. In the 1960s work, Love and Responsibility, which is the greatest aid for insomnia you can get, don't believe me, just try it, Wojtyla, okay, whatever, JP2 rejects what he calls the rigorous and Puritan interpretation. No! Puritans, what do we don't want? Puritan, get them out of here! Rigor, no! Because, hey, you're too rigor. No! Dog, it's called nature or no nature. Hey, you want some sodomy? That's what I thought, because everyone who says it's wrong is rigorous and Puritan. Okay? You want some contraception? Forget those rigorous Puritan types. Whiskey and lemon juice. Rigorous and Puritan interpretation of the conjugal life and sexual intercourse, which sees the latter as instrumental goods serving the purpose of procreation. Yeah. Okay, so hey, you're a rigorous and Puritan if you see the conjugal act for the purpose of procreation. Man, this is crazy. And all this stuff about the Manichaeans, I don't quite get it. But anyway, the Manichaeans were in the NFP too. Okay, continuing. So JP2 then adds, for the Creator, by God giving man and woman a rational nature and the ability to determine consciously their acts, gave them thereby the power to choose by themselves the end to which the sexual intercourse leads in a natural way. Oh, so they can take nature and choose to turn it on or turn it off. They get to choose where they're going to put their nature. Sort of like sodomy. I guess I'm going to choose where my nature's going to go and to choose what it's going to do. It's all about love, man. You can go in the front or you can go in the back, whatever you like, because he's loving. You know what I'm saying? Pretty simple. Not hard to figure out. Or you got a little NFP going. Hey, when there's an egg in the room, no. When there's no egg in the room, it's fine, because nature is not what we're about. Love. Love wins. And where two persons can choose together a certain good as an end, sounds good to me. I'm going to choose the good I want. Why not? Ye shall be as gods. There the possibility of love also exists. Oh yeah. In other words, if you have to have procreation primary, the possibility of love doesn't exist, because it's not the thing. Therefore, the Creator does not use persons merely as this is so lame. Does not use persons merely as a means or tools for his procreative power, but opens before them the possibility of a particular realization of love. And all the women are like, it's so dreamy. I want some more love. Yeah, what the problem is, though, after Eve ate the fruit, she has to have 17 kids. Oopsies. You know what I mean? So, yeah, this is witchcraft. This is witchcraft for the nice girls. That's what this is. That's all it is. It's family destruction and homo and divorce and easy annulment and low birth rate. And contraception gets normalized. You've heard, I think in Rome, they're talking now about we just have to get enough people to change their attitudes. Like that song from Dr. Laura. Ooh, 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 I got a new attitude. They got to change their attitudes so we can change doctrine. And their attitudes have been changed real hard by this NFP propaganda. So they're going to legalize contraception. I mean, why not? What do you think's going to happen? Okay. All right. Continuing. It depends on them whether they will place their sexual intercourse on the level of love, on the level proper to persons, or below this level. And the Creator wills not only the preservation of the species through the sexual intercourse, but also its preservation on love that is worthy of persons. Yeah. He wants charity for everybody. And people deserve charity, whereas a box of rocks do not. But that doesn't mean that the purpose of nature is not procreation. And that's all they're saying in fancy language. They're saying, what do you want? There's that line, everyone gets in the line for soothing lies, and then, hard truths, nobody's in line for it. That's all that's going on here. So JP2's claim here is no different from Dewey Weird's point, the Protestant, that the inner essence of marriage, how about the outer essence, the essence period, the essence of the legal essence, the natural essence of marriage may not be sought in the purpose of having children. Oh, really? Remember we used to say that so this is why NFP was in the beginning was like, ooh, only for the direst, harshest, terriblest reasons can use NFP. Now it's like, dude, pump up the NFP because love wins. We need more love. You don't need you don't need any reason. Okay? Because the purpose, because we want the inner essence, the inner essence of marriage may not be sought in the purpose of having children, but rather absolutely peculiar about the meaning of the marital bond is the constant love union between them. Okay, so look. Marriage is, they say the meaning. All this is just a bunch of baloney. This is like a bunch of stupid words. And I'm calling it out because no one else is. All right? It's all it is, man. Essence of, I think I've said enough about this. Anyone want to talk to me in the comments? Don't be shy. Listen, clicking like is free. I need all the likes I can get because it helps further the cause, all right? I might be getting another house soon, in which case I'll be able to retire. This is, in the works, I think. And then I'll be able to do even more videos in case you can't get enough. Now then, let's keep going. JP2 clarifies here that each of the traditional reasons for marriage, namely the having and raising of children, mutual help, and so he's saying JP2 says the three the three goods of marriage, or the three ends, the three essentials of marriage: permanence, exclusivity, and procreation. Wait, let me back up a second. Wojtyła clarifies here that the traditional reasons of marriage, no, these aren't traditional reasons of marriage, this is the purpose. Primary for kids, secondary mutual help and remedy of concupiscence, which is a legitimate origination of desire, are all expressions of love as a virtue. So he's just saying that all of this is love. He adds, however, opposing love to procreation or indicating a primacy of procreation over love is out of the question. Really? Wow. Opposing love to procreation or indicating a primacy of procreation over love is out of the question. Baloney, sorry. And he could technically be correct because, love is the best thing, and you can't just they're not supposed. And yes, people do say they don't have to be polar opposites or different. Correct, but there is a hierarchy to them when you're talking about nature. Okay, all right. So that's why they talk about expressions and values and dimensions and significances and meanings. Because that's all goo. That doesn't make it, that we're talking about essence, law, and purpose. All right. So basically he's saying it's out of the question. That's another, out of the question is not a legal statement. It's just like, it's freaking me out, or out of hand, or not admissible. Those aren't legal statements per se, or necessarily. So, however, opposing love to procreate, whatever. Let's keep going. JP2 correctly understands that the internal meaning structure of married love. He understands that marriage may not be detached from biotic functions in the organic differences. Okay, fine. He can assert that, but if procreation is not primary, they don't have to be. It doesn't have to be husband and wife. It can be whatever loves. Simple as that. Procreation, unaccompanied by its co-education and co-striving for the highest good, would also be, in a certain sense, incomplete and incompatible with the love of the person. All right, now this is part of the rub with all the annulments. You want to have kids, fine, but it's got to be good, and it's got to be compatible with love of the person. If having kids is not compatible with love of the person, You are not married. You don't have capacity. ... This is where this is where we took, here's procreation right here. And inside, we've hidden love inside. It's behind, it's just in there, okay? It's in there. Sometimes it comes out, the love, right? That, now they just took it and they put it in there. It's like, it's in there. It's been in there the whole time. But no, before Dietrich, nobody even admitted, but now it is. It's fake and gay. Continuing. Thus, significantly for JP2, as it is for Hildebrand and Dewey Weird, love is the single meaning of marriage. I don't care about your meaning. You can just say it. And this is what has gone on with all these dudes. They're like saying, we can't say procreation is a secondary end. We cannot say secondary end is the essence, or that it complies with nature, that it is in accord with nature. We can't say that. So we're going to talk all about meanings and love and integrating principles and all this stuff. And then people will buy it. And that's what happened. So Hildebrand was the front runner Catholic, and he had just banged against the wall really hard for a long time. And then he had his cool wife there, whatever her name is, Alice von Hildebrand. She's like, use the soap the right way, so much love, and everyone's like, wow, this is amazing. And like I said in the other videos, I don't think this all these accolades that Pius XII supposedly put on him or called in the doctrine of the church were real, because he basically said in 1944, forget all y'all, you're all wrong, and it's revolutionary error. But then in 1951, Pius XII caved, and so he can't talk about it anymore. Kind of like if you say doing drugs are bad and you become a drug dealer yourself, it's kind of hard to talk about it. All right. I conclude with Hildebrand. Marriage, as well as the marital act, has meaning, not only because of procreation, but also as the expression and fulfillment of a deep... shut up. Okay. Yeah, they just go on and on and on. Just this love bomb the whole thing. Just like, speaking of love bombs, that new statement that was put out by Tucho Fernandez, Cardinal Fernandez, he says, una caro. They just talk about unity and love like those words are going out of style and they have to use them all up. They just go over and over and over and over, repeat it to the max. Although Vatican II's Gaudium et Spes says it avoids the language of primary and secondary, it nevertheless affirms the truth behind the traditional formulation. Oh, does it really? Hold on to your hats by stating that having and raising children naturally belongs to the full unfolding of marriage, with conjugal love being its integrating principle. Yeah, I know what's coming next. By their very nature, institutions of marriage, the conjugal love so marriage and love are ordained for the procreation and education of children. Yeah, fine. And then they say all this stuff about children of the crown and all this junk. No. So they're basically saying children are secondary. Children flow from love. No. Love flows from children. That's what's up. The life-giving love business? No, it's contract-giving, or life-giving contract. And love is secondary. Charity is important, but it's not nature. By their very nature, okay, yeah, all right. Conjugal love is the vivifying source. Really? Okay, well, whatever. Groovy. The fruitfulness of marriage is treated as the fulfillment of conjugal love. The fruitfulness of marriage is treated. Oh, hello, yes. So if love wins, it's really fruitful. Maybe that's why homos never really get it straight, because they never have kids. But you know what? They can't bear fruit, but it's still pretty loving to them. And hey, if you want to use NFP all the time, you're not going to bear fruit, but it's really loving. So what's the deal? You got NFP? We got sodomy. Whatever, man. Marriage and conjugal love are by their nature ordained toward the begetting and education of children. This is where they sneak in this stuff. That's all when they say the loving marriage is the union of two persons in a partnership ordained by nature for procreation. What they just said is love is primary and procreation is secondary. That's what they just said, even though it didn't sound like it. And here's where it comes from. Marriage and conjugal love are by their nature marriage and conjugal love. So love has a nature. Did you know that? Did you know charity has a nature? Now we are taking what is organic and making it spiritual. So once you do that, it's kind of like, this is why people want, this is like the new paganism. We are taking the conjugal act and we're worshiping it. We're attaching spiritual something to it. It's a bit of a you're worshiping the conjugal act. That's what you're doing. And kids are secondary. For when it doesn't work out, there's abortion, there's gay, there's contraception, there's divorce, and there's annulment. That's because love wins. And we cannot judge anything. That's why we're lost. We are lost until we get nature back. If you start saying transgender is gender, if you start saying that stuff is nature, because nature is love, it just says right here, love is nature. If love is nature, trans is nature, homo is nature, divorce is nature. Okay? What are you going to say to that? Well, that's what I thought. You can't say anything. That's why they run with it. Love wins everywhere. All the hippies, all the homos. Love, love, love. And the Christians are like, wow, yeah. Just like the communists come in and they say, welfare, welfare, charity, charity, charity. All the Christians are like, well, I guess so. Begetting and education of children. All right, hang on. He implies that children are not the end to which marriage is an instrumental good. Who does? Who does? Gaudium et Spes? Wait. He implies that children are not the end to which marriage is an instrumental good. They are a means, sometimes even seen as an optional extra to the couple's fulfillment. Who are we talking about here? Just a minute. Okay, we're talking about this guy, Grease says here, Grease, whatever. According to Gaudium et Spes, conjugal communion is designed to be and normally as an intrinsically part of a larger intrinsically whole family. Yeah, so this is why it's like family is number one. Therefore, the conjugal act doesn't have to be procreative. Thus, parenthood and the intrinsic fulfillment of the intimate union of persons and actions. See, Gaudium et Spes, baby. This is all Protestant love stuff. Avoiding the language of primary and secondary ends. Yeah, they sure did, because that really gets very awkward, because you have to say end, you have to say purpose, which means nature, which means essence, which is really hard. It's like looking at somebody's hand and say, that's not really a hand, that is a significance of God's creative power, and it happens to be a hand, but that's not really what it is in its true meaning, okay? So if we cut it off because you stole something, it wasn't really a hand to begin with. That's how dumb this is. He implies that children are not the end to which marriage is an instrumental good, nor are they a means, sometimes even seen as an optional extra to the couple's fulfillment. Rather, the having and raising of children are the realization and hence fulfillment of the good of the marital communion of conjugal love. All right, this is beating this up over and over. Kids are secondary. Got that? Marital communion of conjugal love, primary. Non-definition, feminism is in charge. Your desire will be for your husband, as in, I'm going to take over if it ain't going my way, and I got the state and the church behind me, because all the love in the room comes right out of the bishop, because JP2 said so. You know, I can divorce because canon law, because Vatican II, therefore God's on my side. JP2, Feminist Consortio. Love is essentially a gift. There it is. Respect the gift, you guys. Timothy Gordon, you believe that marital debt exists. No, it doesn't, because it's a gift. If your mortgage payment is a gift, if you have a mortgage debt and it's essentially a gift, you can't force me to give you a gift. I can give you a gift if I want to, if I like you, if I desire to, if I think I want to do that, but you can't force me to give you a gift. Timothy Gordon, my birthday's coming up August 4th. I'm going to be 60. You know what I'm telling you what you're going to give me for my birthday. You're going to give me a brand new pair of cowboy boots, bright orange, okay? With plastic spurs, just because. That say rules for retrogrades on them. That's what you're going to give me for my birthday. And I'm telling you, you have to. And you're like, I don't have to because there's no contract. I can give you that if I want to, but that's a gift, dude. Love is essentially a gift. If marriage is love, essentially a gift, you're in your marital debt are out. But if Tim and I made a contract which says, Tim, I'm going to give you blank, whatever that is that you really want. And in turn, you're going to give me the birthday present of my choice every year till I'm dead. You know, it's all, every birthday present will be under $200, but whatever I say, within reason, you're going to give it to me. And he'll say, fine, I'll sign that contract all day. And he does. Now, it's not a gift, it's a contract, it's binding, and he has to do it. I'll be cool, and he can be cool, and he can give me those nice orange cowboy boots with plastic spurs that say rules for retrogrades on them. But if it's just a gift, so forget marital debt. This is what I'm trying to tell Timothy Gordon. NFP says no marital debt because love wins, dog. Amoris Laetitia. Wow, this is getting good. Pope Francis says marriage is firstly, aka primarily, an intimate partnership of life and love. Wow, okay. Everyone loves that, right? Sounds cool? And like I said, we cannot change doctrine until attitudes have changed. Our attitudes change? Boy, oh boy, are they ever. Will anyone say that NFP is wrong? No. Will anyone say that procreation is primary? No, because they can't. They can try, but it won't work. Cardinal Burke will say procreation is primary, but he'll say NFP is natural. Oh, well, gotta go. Can't talk about it. He'll say we can no longer define the essence of marriage. We have no definition of marriage. He said it point blank. I got this text. I got the recording. He said it in Madison, Wisconsin, 2011. There is no definition of the essence of marriage. Those are Cardinal Burke's words. No, there's no accepted definite description of them. Nope. That's what that means. And he's like, wow, you know, moving on. So it's super sick. This is totally lame. It's got to get fixed. All we have to do is just go back to nature. That's all we have to do. The fruit of the specific act of the conjugal love. What? Catechism of the Catholic Church 2378, which is, okay, hold on, let me back up. No genital act, husband and wife can refuse this meaning. Really? Wait, whoa. From the outset, love refuses every, this must be some more Catholic weird stuff. Catechism. Okay, yeah, mutual giving, mutual fulfillment, the fruit of the fulfillment. That's right. Secondary, kids are secondary. If you're not fulfilled, divorce, it's cool. But present from the beginning of love is an essential feature one cannot be denied without disfiguring of the love itself. Oh, you're going to disfigure the love if you deny it and you say marital debt, Timothy Gordon. From the outset, love refuses every impulse to close in on itself. Fine, that's groovy. It is open to a fruitfulness that draws it beyond itself. This sounds so poetic and so great. This must be Amoris. Hence, no genital act of husband and wife can refuse this meaning. Humanae Vitae number 11. Okay. No genital act can refuse this meaning. What's a meaning? Hey, what do these tweezers mean to you? They can't. You have to say they mean something. What? I don't know exactly, but I have to assign a meaning. You have to agree to the meaning of these. No, I don't. They cost $1.29 at Walmart, and I use them to pull hair out of my ears and occasionally torture a mosquito. That's what I use them for because I want to, and I don't care what they mean. You don't have to have this meaning because it's just objective stuff, okay? Even when, for various reasons, it may not always, in fact, beget a new life. Yeah. Procreation secondary. A child deserves to be born of that love. A child deserves to be born of that love and not by any other means. A child has a right of natural law right to be born to an intact home. You could say they deserve to be born of love, but God allows plenty of kids naturally to be born not of in a loving environment. And loving environment is not a legal statement. Every kid is born into a less than perfect environment, except our Lord with the Holy Family. Okay, every child deserves blah, blah. He or she is not something. He He or she is not something owned to one, but is a gift, a child. Okay, great, fine, whatever. Which is a kid is the fruit of the specific act of conjugal love of the parents. No, it is the natural destiny of biology. That's what it is. But they're saying it's the fruit of conjugal love. If you go back to Casti Connubii 54, it is the natural destiny of the conjugal act. Children. But now we're saying it's not the natural destiny, because not if you don't want it to be. Like we said, you can pick love or you can pick your nature. It's fine. It's up to you. Oh, this is Donum Vitae, I guess. Groovy. Continuing. Let's find some more yellow highlights. This is so long, but you guys can hang out and read it all if you want. All right, so I've mentioned this before. Freud said that the separation of procreation... I got to make this a little bigger just a minute. Freud said that the separation of procreation from the conjugal act gives way to all perversions. Yes, that's what he said. And it only makes sense. But again, some of these non-Catholics will actually come out and say what is true, because the Catholics have so much institutional bias over all this stuff. And they just keep doubling and tripling down on it. Okay, so I was talking to Claude recently. This is I asked him about Freud, and they said, so AI says this is a striking claim worth verifying carefully. So Claude looks into it. You are essentially correct. The actual Freud quote is even more striking than you paraphrased it. Here is directly from blah, blah, blah. We term sexual activity perverse when it has renounced the aim of reproduction and follows the pursuit of pleasure as an independent goal. Remember what Pius XII said in 1944, you cannot pursue something independently of procreation. All right, but it's a perversion when you do. And they were just calling it a spade, man. And so you realize that the turning point in the development of sexual life lies in the subjugation to the purpose of reproduction, as in making procreation secondary. The turning point. When did that happen? The 20th century, pretty much. That's when it happened. Everything this side of the turning point, everything this side of the revolution from Dietrich von Hildebrand, everything that has been given up to this purpose and serves the pursuit of pleasure alone must carry the term perverse, and such be regarded with contempt. That's from EWTN. That's called family planning, is perverse. It is a perversion of the right order. That's what Casti Connubii says. But not anymore, because the right order is love. So therefore, love is primary, and that's why you can't use contraception, because it breaks that inseparable connection. And the only reason it's an inseparable connection is because they just assert it, because they have to make it all fly. If procreation is secondary, it doesn't have to exist, and you can be homo, NFP, or sodomy. And his shorter formulation, the common characteristic of all perversions is that they have abandoned reproduction as their aim. That's right. This is why the conjugal act must have procreation as its aim, and it is allowed for remedy of concupiscence, but as a indulgence. So Alphonse has kind of clarified, nuanced it a bit, that it is legitimate and it can be sinful, but it isn't automatically sinful, right? Because you have a right to it. But look, if you're thinking, it's like, you can eat a donut for lunch, but it's probably not cool, but you can do it. It's not intrinsically wrong, but it's not really a good idea if you're thinking, if you want to be reasonable. If you're going to run a marathon later, you just skip the donut. Why don't you just have a bunch of the cream from inside a Twinkie? Why don't you just mainline a bunch of that? You could, but it's not really good. It's not doesn't make sense. Nor does the conjugal act for non-procreation make sense. I don't plant seeds in the ground hoping they don't, for no reason. I'm trying to get something to grow, right? So it's not reasonable to throw seeds onto the middle of the expressway because you want them to grow. Nope. So it's not reasonable to put your seed somewhere where nothing's going to happen. That's independent of the monthly cycle. We're talking about menopause, nursing stuff. This is why the popes said for the spirit, I think it was Pope's Alexander, I can't remember who. For the spiritual man, if she's pregnant, treat her as your sister, right? For the spiritual man. So if you can like raise your activity level to that which is more fitting to a human, like get reasonable, get rational, then don't. The irony here is profound and worth noting. I'll be right back just a minute. Freud, okay, the irony here is profound and worth noting. Freud, an atheist with no stake in Catholic moral theology, arrived at a conclusion that perfectly corroborates, oh, look at this, the 1944 Holy Office Decree in Canon 1013 of the 1917 Code. By his own, that's like procreation primary. By his own framework, any sexual act that deliberately severs pleasure from procreation falls under the definition of perversion. Yes! That's why homo's wrong, among other reasons, and that's why NFP is wrong. And, okay? As the Harvard sociologist Carl Zimmerman observed, nor did the atheist Sigmund Freud perceive any difficulty in detecting the intrinsic perversity of contraception and allied deviations. Yeah, but it's so funny. EWTN is like pro-NFP, and it's right under their nose, and they won't even talk about it. They won't. I've tried to talk to all kinds of people through it. No. NFP is the hugest. The politics are so big, you cannot get near it because it is connected to divorce and annulment, and they can't touch it. No way. All right. This also creates an awkward tension. Awkward tension. That's what they say when you have 2 + 2 = 5. An awkward tension for those who invoke Freud to liberalize sexual ethics. They are selectively quoting him since his foundational point, Freud's own framework, stands squarely with the traditional Catholic ordering of the ends of marriage. Okay, cool. So what do we say? We say that perversion is a social construct because nature is whatever you want. Because NFP says nature is love. Because marriage is love. Because marriage is nature. And love is what you decide it is for you. Okay? That's how there's no such thing as perversion anymore. Perversion is a you problem. If you say I'm perverse, then who are we to judge? You can't judge my perversion because there's no objective nothing. So Freud is like, no, there isn't, because we know what the conjugal act is for biologically. So we're going to pervert that. But now, if biology is love, according to NFP, then there's nothing to pervert. That's all that works. That's how they get around it. You said any sexual act that deliberately, this is me talking to Grok or whatever. You said any sexual act that deliberately severs the pleasure from procreation falls under the definition of perversion. Any sexual act that deliberately, yes. Okay, so doesn't agenesic NFP aim to do just that? Doesn't using regular NFP to avoid babies, isn't that the definition of perversion? Claude responded, this is a razor-sharp question, as in politically hot, at least, hot potato question, and is one of the most serious objections ever leveled against NFP. This is a razor-sharp, yeah. You are identifying a genuine unresolved tension. It's not an unresolved tension. It's not a tension. It's a contradiction. The objection stated precisely. If a couple uses NFP specifically during the agenesic infertile periods while deliberately intended to enjoy sexual union without avoiding conception, they are, functionally speaking, doing exactly what Freud described. Pursuing pleasure while deliberately excluding procreation as the aim, the purpose, the telos. The result is identical to contraception, only method differs. Ding, ding, ding. The Church's answer. The Church's standard distinction is contraception positively intervenes to frustrate procreative act. NFP abstains only during infertile periods. Only during fertile periods it works with nature. All this working with nature stuff. Heck, a heart transplant works with nature. A stent works with nature. Artificial contraception works with nature by manipulating nature to get what you want out of nature. That's all. All family planning works with nature because nature is what makes babies. Contraceptive positively intervenes. Okay, when you put X's on the calendar and you use calendar castration, that's a positive intervention right there. What normally would happen is Babies would happen because acts would happen when fertility happens, because that's what nature does, okay? But we're going to positively intervene with that by saying this is a no-go zone during these calendar days. Why that answer may be answer may be insufficient. The problem is that intention matters morally, not just the mechanism. Hang on. This intention is identical, sex, birth control argument. This was precisely the argument made by the significant minority of the Pontifical Birth Control Commission. No, it was the majority, actually, and it was by several theologians, including who drafted majority, it's the majority report, argued that Humanae Vitae could not logically condemn contraception while permitting intentional use of NFP. That's the majority report. That's what they said. Hey, if you guys allow NFP, you got to allow contraception, because there ain't no difference. You're saying the nature of marriage is X, therefore we don't have to do it because love is number one. What does Pius XII say? Pius XII addressed this directly in his 1951 allocution to midwives. Oh, this should be good. Where he permitted NFP but with significant moral qualifier, because before that there was no NFP at all because procreation was primary. But he caved to the politics, because in 1944 he said no NFP, no way, procreation primary. Now he says if you have a super duper serious reason, it's natural. He explicitly warned that NFP without a sufficient reason could itself be sinful. No, he said it's a sin against the very nature of married life. Nobody knows what the nature of married life is and if it's natural. Is the nature of married life natural? What is the nature of married life? What Pius XII did was he started saying increase and multiply is a binding precept. That's what he said. He's wrong. That's wrong. If it's a binding precept, then then the conjugal act is based in justice, okay, and nature. Now it's no longer based in justice. You don't have to produce kids. It's nature only, not a binding precept anymore. So even Pius XII did not grant a blanket permission for eugenicing, but he subordinated it to the proportionate cause. There. The conjugal act is subordinate to procreation, but now it's subordinated to circumstance. Just like abortion is subordinate to circumstance. That's why they say only within the first 3 weeks or the first trimester. After that, it's no good. Only for rape and incest. You can do contraception only if you have a hard time with something. All this stuff. So nature is based on circumstance. You can kill grandma in Canada if you have a good reason. Right. Bottom line, your objection stands with considerable force. The Freudian criterion applied consistently would implicate deliberate NFP just as much as contraception. Yep. The Church's answer rests on the act of mission distinction and the integrity of the conjugal act itself. The Church's answer rests on the fact that, hey, not doing anything is not doing anything, but it's the combination. It's the combination of stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I can think of some stupid analogies, but I don't need to. So the integrity of the conjugal act itself. This is why, by the way, vasectomy is natural today, Timothy Gordon, and castration is natural, because it's not affecting the integrity of the conjugal act, because the purpose is love. There it is. It changed in 1977. Critics rightly note that the will is directed against procreation in both cases. The moral difference is harder to sustain than Humanae Vitae suggests. What did I just read there? Critics rightly note that if the will is directed against procreation in both cases, the moral difference is harder. Yeah. Even if the will isn't, you're people don't do NFP if they're trying. It's like, look, will is one thing, but nature is another. If you're restricting nature one way or another, it violates it. It remains one of the most theologically unresolved tensions in Catholic sexual ethics. Okay, it's not a tension, it's a contradiction, and it's why is it unresolved? The answer is the politics are sky high, and the more you double and triple down on it, the higher they get. So eventually, when there's no more families, no more marriage, no more priests, no more nothing, people will be looking around going, you know what? I think we're going to have to get back to nature. Maybe this is 2026. So maybe by 2066, when everything's dead and there's no more Christopher West alive anymore, they're just ain't going to they're just like, it's already starting to happen, I think. But we have got to reject this junk. That's why I say if you're not against NFP, you're not on the team. So go out there and stay salty. Stay toxic, excuse me. Core issue, Hildebrand's move. Yeah, okay. What is this? Hildebrand's signature move, distinguishing between the end of marriage, procreation, and the meaning of marriage, was genuinely novel. Yep, that's right. I'm going to cough just a minute. Alice herself acknowledged that her husband was the culprit who initially introduced the distinction between meaning and end in marriage. Yep. Once you start doing that, you start saying nature, we're transcending nature. That's what we're doing, but we're including it in nature. So a conjugal act without meaning is not natural. That's what they're saying. So nature is subjective and it's spiritual, and this is why we now are worshiping something other than God with our conjugal acts. Noting that these views were, that's why the devil over them, the devil hath power. When you're not pursuing procreation, over them the devil hath power, because you're going horse and mule. Noting that these views were discussed by Nuncio Pacelli, Pius XII, in Germany, who encouraged the young philosopher to publish them. But that papal imprimatur did not silence the critics, and their objections map almost exactly onto your own argumentative yes. So, I guess Pius XII said, yeah, dude, you want to talk about it, go ahead. But then Pius, for some reason, they said, just kill the whole dang thing. In 1944, he said, Hildebrand and everyone like you, put a sock in it and don't go back. And they're like, yeah, too late. Love wins. The most authoritative prophetic rebuke came not from a single voice, but from the magisterium itself in a direct response to the personalist movement of Hildebrand, catalyzing October 1st, 44. And yeah, you know what I mean. Procreation primary, everyone else, forget it. No, all of whom express. Okay, so we got Bernard Krempel, Hildebrand, Herbert Doms, all of whom were expressing in that decade to rehabilitate the personal values of the marital act at the expense of the classical hierarchy, as in the expense of children's safety, the expense of the permanence of marriage. And this classical hierarchy, they call it ahistorical and archaic and old framework and old views and all this old blah, blah. It's nature. You get rid of it, you reap the whirlwind. Herbert Doms and Holy Office condemnation. Yeah, Doms is no good. Dietrich von Hildebrand, Herbert Doms, and Bernard Kemp, these three wrote influential works rejecting the traditional emphasis on the procreation as the primary end of marriage, arguing it diminished the more personal or more interpersonal values of marriage, conjugal love, mutual. Blah, blah, blah. Dom's more radical formulation, the marital act is intrinsically ordered to two-in-one flesh unity. Okay, now that's what everyone says. With procreation as a kind of byproduct. That's all it is, man. Today, people will say, no, we have the three goods of marriage, and that's all. But the real honest ones will say, no, there's four now. Four. We have good of the spouses is the fourth bonum. We used to have three bonums, now we have four. All right. Marital act is intrinsically ordered to two-in-one flesh. Yeah. Was formally condemned. Von Hildebrand avoided condemnation partly through careful hedging, but his project was spiritually continuous with Dom's. Careful hedging. That is exactly right. This is what these guys do. They're just, they jump all around. They're careful with words, and they say a lot of stuff. They basically say 2 + 2 is 5 in a special way. And they get away with it because no one calls them on it, because everyone wants 2 + 2 = 5 because they either get more money or more whatever. And that's why no one wants to touch it. Speaking of fancy footwork, I've promised in part 1 I was going to get to Gregory Pine, Father Gregory Pine. He is like, he's like the head honcho. He's peak footwork. We're going to have to check the. He's a master skedaddler. I'm going to play his video in a minute. I think I will play his video and then we'll talk about it. Okay, I got I got the what do you call it? The transcript right here. Let me go to it just a minute. Take it away, Gregory Pine.
It doesn't. That's very important. The arguments we're making do not denigrate that reality; they heighten it.
He doesn't do much for me. Okay, listen.
And then also, like, aged persons, for instance, it also it also helps us to make sense of, like, the ongoing conversation which needs to take place between married persons as they navigate their difficulties. Because it's not sufficient to say, like, let's just do this description of behavior, let's just do that description of behavior. They need to be in tune with each other in such a way that they're growing in marital chastity and looking to be of service, to be loving in their relationship.
So he's saying this so fast. He's basically saying objectivity, truth, what we must and must not do. No, we need to get unified on it first, okay? So let's keep going. Listen how fast he's a master. He's amazing at what comes out of his mouth. Listen.
But with the sensitivity to the other person's condition, with the sensitivity to the other person's preference. Because otherwise, right, it can become imbalanced. But the fact of the matter is it's always going to be difficult when it involves two different people coming to an appreciation of the same goods and working their way toward the common embrace thereof. So I think it's like,
it will become imbalanced. That's why we have to have unity. This is why they say husband and wife have equal rights, and there must be unity. So we can't have a certain nature we're conforming to. We must be unified in what we think. This is where all this stuff comes from, because marriage is love is unity. This means we just got to be super sensitive, which is basically feminine. So again, if I have a piece of ham and I really want to have it, but I'm holding it in front of my golden retriever and he really wants to have it, he's going to win, because that's his nature. He's just boom. And so, like I said, after the fall, her desire will be for her husband. She's gonna go grab that ham, because that's where she's at. It's good she didn't do it unless she's highly trained. Okay, so she wins. Anyway, continuing.
By describing it in this way, so primary end and secondary end, like with an end and another end subordinated thereunto, we're able to account for the church's teaching and the catechism definition, even though, like, the present catechism, for instance, leads with mutual support of the spouses. It doesn't necessarily mean thereby I'm changing the church's teaching and making this the primary end.
Okay, so this is how these guys do it. They're saying, look, even though it looks like we're not changing the primary end, we're not. We're just talking in a different, more meaningful way. But that's what they are doing. This is why Hildebrand was careful with his fancy footwork, with his words, so that he didn't get absolutely popped, because he was like, he took it to the 1 yard line and went, well, I'm going to stop right there. This is what's going on. Listen again. Let's keep going.
But it's starting with something, I think, closer to our experience and trying to sound the depths, like of what people encounter within the setting of married love.
Did you hear the weird... Okay, sound the depths, what we encounter in the setting of married love. So he's basically saying we have to be unified. But he says this so fast, so good. I mean, the guy is not stupid, but boys, he got it down, man.
I hope some of that's helpful.
Debates are going to rage on this issue.
I hope some of that's helped. That's what they say. Is this helpful? No. And by the way, I have gotten Father Gregory Pine on the phone and email. He doesn't really answer questions on email because it's too precise. Because you can say, okay, you just said this. Did you mean that? We have to talk on the phone. That's what he said. So I'm talking to him on the phone. He's like, yeah, okay, got to go. And so he's like, we can't. And you email. He's like, no. You can't talk to these NFP apologists because they got nothing. All they can do is fancy footwork and drive-by statements and go. They can't stick in and debate about it, particularly in writing, for sure. Because fancy footwork, you can dance around pretty good in a debate, but not in writing. All right, let's go to the next clip here, just a minute. All right, go ahead.
Leading to some of the greatest difficulties we're having today.
Yeah. Maybe my final thought before wrapping up is people encounter a lot of different language when they read about marriage or when they encounter marriage in the church's teaching. I think it's helpful to start with this language of two ends. All right, so procreation and education of children, and
it's helpful to start with two ends. It's helpful. Do we want to be helpful? Of course we do. So it's helpful to start with two ends, even though there's only one. We're going to start with two ends. Okay, just because we want to be helpful. So hold on.
Mutual support of the spouses, sometimes referred to as the partnership of the whole of life.
So that's mutual help of the spouses is sometimes the partnership of the whole of life. All right, whatever. I'm interrupting too much because we're going to lose. I have it all transcript, so let's just keep going.
But you're also going to
see how they lock in.
Exactly, see how they lock in, and to do so in conversation with the three goods of marriage enunciated by St. Augustine. All right, so we said that those are fidelity, children, and sacrament.
Remember what I said earlier when we had the three goods of marriage? Fidelity, children, and sacrament, as in exclusivity, procreation, children, and permanence. Those are the three goods. But he is saying that we have those three goods, but we also have love over all of them. That's what he said. We can back up. We'll go through I got the transcript. Let's just keep going.
Fidelity corresponding to mutual support of the spouses.
Fidelity corresponding to mutual support of the spouses. So he is saying that exclusivity is mutual support of the spouses. Remember how I said they take the three goods of marriage and they put love in them? They hide the love in them. This is the Trojan horse. Here, whoops, I turned this on too bright. Sorry, just a minute. This is the Trojan horse. Let me turn it down. Come on, down. I got to put my stage lights here. Here's the Trojan horse right here. We're going to hide it in here, okay? So we got to get our love into the essence of marriage somehow, so we're going to hide it in there, and no one's going to know anything. This is exactly what he's doing.
Children corresponding to procreation and education of the children. And then
okay, so that's correct. Children is children. Yeah.
Sacrament corresponding to that superadded grace, which comes with the raising of the institution of marriage to the dignity of the sacrament. You're also going to encounter...
No. Sacrament does not mean the institution of grace. It just means permanence. Because marriage is permanent because that's all sacrament means, okay? A natural marriage has no grace, but it's permanent. Those are the three goods: permanence, exclusivity, procreation, nature. So he changed some stuff around, but it sounds so good, everyone just goes with it. That's why he doesn't want to talk to me. I really don't think I don't think he wants to talk to me, or he would. Because I made that video about him, and he kind of called up. I was arguing, like, "Hey, man." And he's like, I don't know. Okay, keep going.
Language about like the properties of marriage. Sometimes you'll hear unity and indissolubility described after that manner.
The properties of marriage, unity and indissolubility. Those are that exclusivity. So remember, okay, unity. He's going, look, we're putting unity into the marriage. Unity is essential. No, unity as far as an essence, as far as an essential property, is strictly the exclusivity. That's all unity means, exclusivity. And marriage has one purpose, two elements. Those are the three goods. Procreation is the purpose. The two elements are permanence and exclusivity. Those are the two elements.
I think that's like having taken into account that procreation and education of the children is primary in marriage, then these are the things which flow from the relationship which seeks to pursue that. And you'll often encounter...
He just said exactly what Hildebrand had been saying, and Dewey Weird and all these people have been saying this whole video, that procreation flows from love, not love flows from procreation. That's what he just said. And we'll go back to the transcript and check it out.
Encounter this in canonical conversations. So the fact is, there's a lot of different language to describe what's at stake at marriage, but we can make sense of it by getting our kind of priorities straight.
We can make sense of it by getting our priorities straight. No, we can make sense of it by defining the words. And we're not going to define those because we're hosed if we do. Because unity only means one thing, not two things. And sacrament only means one thing, not two. You don't get to fill it in what it means. You don't get to add your stuff. And procreation means nature, does not mean good of the spouses. No, but okay. And he says we could. What did he say? Well, I'll go back and look at the transcript. And it's helpful if we do this. Blah blah blah.
And trying to enunciate them with a certain sensitivity to the difficulty that people experience, and also
with a certain sensitivity to the difficulty people experience. You mean, I don't want to have 17 kids? Is that what you're talking about? How are we going to be sensitive and pastoral to me? I want a divorce. How are we going to be sensitive to that? Oh man, it's bad. These guys, no, they'll run over nature to help people get what they want because they're all compromised. If NFP is nature, objectivity is subjective.
So just the complexity of all human relationships and interactions.
The complexity of all human relationships and interactions. That's how complex marriage is. No. Making babies and how it's done is not complex. And the right to do so and description thereof, not complex. That's why people anybody can say I do to that. Now they're making it super complex, man, and you have to have all these super smarty pants canon lawyers at the tribunal to say, well, someone wasn't capable of this true deep meaning of the situation, and therefore we're going to send all their kids to the state, and the husband gets a new spouse, and everything's going to be super Catholic, and everything goes to heck. That's what happens.
Boom. Any final thoughts?
Now, party on.
Let's go, baby. Okay, turning to you, the listener/viewer.
Oh, these guys are goofy. Okay, so if you watch, I'll give the link to this clip. If you watch it really fast, you listen to him and he goes, it's so fast, it's like blah, blah, blah. All right, let's go to the transcript real quick. Hang on. See how they lock in and do so in okay, hang on. Yeah, my final thought, wrapping up this encounter, marriage encounter, I think it's the start language of the two ends. All right. I think it's helpful to start with, it's like, all right, so procreation and education of children, mutual support, spouses, sometimes referred to as the partnership of the whole life, but you're going to see how they lock in. Procreation and education of children and mutual support of the spouses, sometimes referred to as the partnership of the whole life. Whatever. It's so stupid. See how they lock in? Yeah. How they lock in and do so in look at this. And do so in conversation with the three goods of marriage, enunciated by St. Augustine. See, so we're not anti-St. Augustine. We're just going to lock in our personalist trash to nature. And we're going to call it really groovy. All right, so we said that those are fidelity, children, and sacrament. Yeah, exclusivity, procreation, and permanence. Fidelity corresponding to mutual support. So he's saying basically, he's using this word. He's saying fidelity means mutual support of the spouses. No, it just means don't cheat. Children means, children, and you already talked about that. Added grace is with raising the institution of marriage to the dignity of a sacrament. You're going to encounter language like the properties of marriage sometimes. You'll hear unity and indissolubility described after a like manner. Okay, properties of marriage, unity and indissolubility. Unity, and permanence. Exclusivity and permanence. I think that's like having taken into account that procreation and education of children is primary in marriage. I think that's like having taken into account that procreation and education is primary in marriage. These are the things which flow from the relationship which seeks to pursue that, and you'll often encounter this in canonical conversations. I don't care what I encounter in conversations. He's kind of like, oh, it's all great. It's all chill, man. Educate. These things, so the essence of marriage flows from what comes first, what is independent, what is primary. The relationship, okay? Relationship is what things flow from. That is primary, that is independent. That is totally condemned by Pius XII in 1944. They don't want to talk about, these guys won't go there. They can't talk, they won't. Once they figure out that you're not going to pick up what they're laying down, they're like, well, I'm not going to talk to you about this. No, they won't. They got nothing except fancy footwork, like you just heard. If you go back and listen to it straight, it's like blah blah blah, blah, and you're like, what? Whoa, I guess so. I mean, dang, I can't hold a candle to that. And Scott Hahn's kind of similar, and Christopher West, man, woo, just crank it out. All right, but Gregory Pine's top notch. I haven't heard fancy footwork like that like ever. So the fact that there's a lot of different language to describe what's at stake at marriage, but we can make there's a lot of different language. That's because you cannot say 2 + 2 = 5 with a straight face. So what do we have? Different language to describe what's at stake. How about the essence of, no, we're going to describe what's at stake. These guys they're so all over the place, and that's why you can't pin them down. And then if you try or ask, will you communicate with me? They're like, no. But we can make sense of it by getting our kind of priorities straight. We can make sense of it. That's what we want to do, because it's totally confusing, because it doesn't make any sense. But we're going to make sense of it by getting priorities straight. What are our priorities? Love. And trying to enunciate, we'll try to enunciate them with a certain sensitivity to the difficulty, to the real world experience, to casuistry, or whatever you want to call it. Casuistry? I don't know. In other words, this lived experience. So we need to get our priorities straight by basically being sensitive to other people, and also just the complexity of all human relationships. Yeah. Okay, so there's another mouthful of translation. This is hard, and we have to have a listening session to these people. That's it. This is crazy. All right, now here's Miss Big Hair herself. Check this out. Maria Federica. Maybe you've heard of her. She is also a master wordsmither on this stuff. She will spin you right around circles. I've tried to talk to her. She hasn't gotten back to me yet. I've tried. She's like super sunny. She has a really nice high voice and everything. Sounds really feminine. Okay, now listen to what she says. I'll put me like in the corner, maybe a tiny circle or something. Okay, she says, Dietrich von Hildebrand denominated the generation of new human life. Okay, Dietrich, baby. They love Dietrich von Hildebrand over there. Denominated the generation of new human life as the superabundant end of the spousal act. Not a regular end, but a superabundant end. Okay. So you can have a primary end and a secondary end, but we're going to call it a superabundant end. Well, that'll shut up the procreation primary people. Yeah, about time. It's superabundant. Okay. Of the spousal act. Not to deny, but to refine. The scholastic view, aka the Catholic position, the Catholic teaching, that the child is the end of the act. Okay, so the Catholic Church teaches that procreation is the end. But we're going to refine that. We're going to call it a scholastic view, which is another way of saying Catholic teaching. And we're not going to call it the end. We're going to call it the superabundant end, which is something different, which means there are other abundant ends or different ends. But let's continue. The act, like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm trying to give you guys sort of the key to unlock these brainwashers that are telling you all this love wins stuff, which is total homo trash, destroying patriarchy in your family. Okay? They're enemies of marriage. She is an enemy of marriage, just like it says in Casti Connubii 77 and 78, because she thinks the separation of spouses is independent of the sacrament. And you can do that with the state. That's enemy of marriage territory. And they do this because nature is no longer marriage. It's significance and all this other stuff. The act, okay, let's change our deal again. Let's go back to where we were. You just have to believe me. It's all in the show notes. You guys can see it. The act at the source of human generation. The act at the source of human generation is not straightforwardly generative. Okay, it's not straightforwardly generative. Rather, its generativity is metaphysically grounded in it as a oh, this is so crazy. Its generativity is metaphysically grounded in it as a concrete act of union between the spouses. I don't even know what she just said. I could barely figure it out. in it as a concrete act of. So I think what she's saying is that this union, which is undefined, but is something like some sort of groovy non-marital debt stuff, the source of human generation is grounded in non-marital debt action. That's what she's saying. There are thus, in some sense, two finalities. In some sense, two not ends, not purposes. In some sense, we don't know what sense. Two finalities structuring the act. So we're saying that procreation primary means one. That's out, Doc. There's two finalities structuring in a sense. What sense, we're not going to tell you, but you don't even know because your hair is not as big as mine and you don't need to know. Okay? With a specific order between them. Oh, tell us about the order. Union and the fruitfulness following superabundantly from it. Doesn't that sound great? Like my hair, superabundant, flowing, fruitfulness. Ow! Yes. That's the order. Hair first, and speaking engagements flow from that, right? This is look. Oh, we got to get her hair back here. Just a minute. Yeah, whatever. Okay, cool. So, yeah. As I said, this is a bunch of crazy words that are half words, half definitions, half this, half that, to say procreation is secondary, nature is now secondary. That's all this is. Okay. All right, hang on. In this essay, I bring, whoops, let me reverse that. In this essay, she's writing an essay. This is like the intro to it. I bring to evidence the framework underlying von Hildebrand's position by examining love as the forma of the spousal act. So she's saying, look, I can prove that the framework underlying Hildebrand's position. I don't care about your framework underlying position. Look, it's not Catholic. He's saying love as the conjugal act must be the forma of love, or whatever that means. And if you don't know what that means, you're too stupid. That's why you do what these guys say, because you're stupid and they're not. And the significance of sexuality as an embodied act. That means whatever anyone wants it to mean. Because did you know that the significance of sexuality is an embodied act? Wow! What does that mean? That just means love wins. And if you look at her hair and her face, you can tell. Dude, she's like, she's golden, man. Okay. All right. And the significant, yeah. I will conclude with some thoughts on how the concept of superabundance accommodates certain truths about the spousal act more readily than does the simple notion of finality. So what she's saying here is that procreation is really, really cool, but it's secondary. And it's so incredibly cool. It's super abundant, but it's secondary. And these truths... So I conclude some thoughts on how the concept of superabundance accommodates certain truths about the spousal act more readily. Oh, okay. So we're not saying procreation is secondary, but superabundance accommodates truth more readily than the simple notion of Oh, you poor peasant with your ahistorical dead white man ideas. The simple notion of finality, procreation is the end. No. Dude, it's superabundant time. It's secondary. Okay, how about this bad boy right here? Alan Hicks, Associate Professor, St. Gregory the Great Seminary. He must know a thing or two, eh? Let's get a good look at him. What does he have to say? What is he talking about? On the other hand, there is also a clear advantage of adopting an expanded notion, not an expanded definition, because it's an expanded notion of the essence of marriage. There's a clear advantage to make love wins, basically he's saying, and thereby an expanded object of matrimonial consent. Okay, you got my attention. We're going to expand the object of matrimonial consent. What could go wrong? We're going to say that nature is actually bigger than we thought it was. It's a lot more. Woo! That's right. We're not going to redefine marriage. We're just going to make it like infinite. That advantage... hang on, where were we? Oh, yeah. That advantage is that it gives to diocesan... Ooh, listen up, you guys. That advantage is that it gives to diocesan tribunals where they have a bunch of divorce ideologues that can't wait to separate the kids' spouses so they can get them on, moving them along so their kids can turn homo so they can have their way with the kids kind of deal or whatever. Just turn them into hippie zombie Catholics so that they're all morally pliable and weak. Give it to those tribunals. A lot of times the predator priests, they let them work the tribunals. That's true. Much greater leeway in ruling that a marriage is void if it can be determined that a spouse did not understand or was not capable of forming a communion of persons. Oh, he's like, dude, our clear advantage of throwing nature in the garbage is so we can make more annulments. Yep. Because you didn't understand a communion of persons. You done thought you had a communion of persons there. You made a bunch of kids. You had a big family. You didn't have a communion of persons, bro. And there's a big advantage in us expanding the definition of consent. Because now we can trash any marriage we want to, and we do. Like almost 100% of them that come into our door at the tribunal. Or was unable to join his soul to another. Yeah, I ran into my spouse really hard, like as fast as I could, and I bonked her really, together at the end of the hallway, and we couldn't join our souls. It's like unable to join his soul to another. You're one flesh with a prostitute. It ain't hard. You know what I mean? But now, hey, we've expanded so much. Okay? You have to be able to do something super abundant, man, and whatever. It's so crazy. These guys are sick, bad. All in the name of love. Dietrich von Hildebrand, he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. No. He may have had some cool stuff, but you start taking love and you start injecting it into nature, you're watch out. Accordingly, we have seen what is he talking about? We have seen an explosion of annulments through the American tribunal system. All right, this is what I say, and no one else says it except me, pretty much, that I can find. Anyone else that says this, let me know. Where did we get the explosion of annulments in the 60s? Where did they come from in the 1970s? The explosion of annulments. What is the source? Anyone? John Clark, want to pipe up there? It's not the American procedural norms, and that's what Timothy Gordon says too. No, it's the expanded object of consent. Okay? You expand the object of consent, you get an explosion of annulments. There you go. That's what happens. That's exactly what did it. And how do you expand matrimonial consent? You say procreation is secondary, because we want to accommodate our NFP legally, so we say love is primary, but we don't say it, but we basically do. Okay, so we've expanded. Marriage is not mere biology. If you ask anybody coming out of church, they will say that is correct. It's not merely biology. Now it's everything. It's expanded, and so is the number of the annulments expanded right with it. No, we're talking like 21,000% increase. It's sick. You can't get married today because you can't consent, because you can't define the object of matrimonial consent. Go knock on Cardinal Burke's door. Ask him if he knows what the object of matrimonial consent is. If he can tell you, the answer is he cannot do it, because it's expanded from finite to not finite. And you can't. This is why the rights and duties of marriage cannot be articulated or enumerated or defined. They won't do it. They've said it they've said it out loud. I've done it in other videos. Anyone think I'm wrong about this? Come on to the comment section. I'll give you whatever. You can call me on the phone, whatever you want to do. This is one way you can say someone's onto the truth. They're willing and able and desire to talk about it. When someone is not, they pull up the gates, the drawbridge, like, no, can't talk about that. All right. In the early 60s, Declarations of nullity in the United States came in at around 300 per year. Yeah, in 1900, there were like 4 in the whole world, next to 0. And then all this love stuff started happening, and people were like, well, Dietrich von Hildebrand, what he's saying is, love, so I screw this, man, I'm out of here, da-da-da-da. Since the late 60s, when according to Ren, Ren is one of those guys. Ren is one of the dudes who will admit, at least, he's bad. This Father Ren will say, there's used to be 3 goods, now there's 4. Sorry, excuse me, 4. Used to be 3, now there's 4. Ren will say that. We expanded the essence of marriage. See, he's being at least honest. To include the right to the joining of souls and the right to spousal communion. Ren is bad news, but he actually opened his mouth and said what's going on. They added to the essence. That is like saying, we told God you blew it when you defined marriage. We're going to tell you how it really is because we know so much more now. In marriage, you got to join your soul. You need spousal communion. You don't need just procreation. You need spousal communion. And just like What's-Her-Face said, all of them say this. Everyone's brainwashed now. Everyone, you can't get out of it. It's all in the Jim Carrey movie. I already said what it was called. The not the Twilight Zone, but when he's in that city and that movie. Okay. The number of such declarations reached over 60,000 in 1991 alone. The Truman Show, excuse me. 21,000%. This indeed, as Cardinal Burke remarked, a worrying fact. It's a worrying fact, y'all. Man. Yeah. He's not doing a thing about it. He won't, because this worrying fact is staring him in the face like a 500-pound bully saying, what are you going to do about it, Cardinal Burke? Are you going to ban NFP? I didn't think so. Nothing to talk about. That's the end. Speaking of ends, we are now at the end. We finally finished Dietrich von Hildebrand. Thanks for watching. Like I said, like it. If I'll take some subscriptions, whatnot. I got to do a Timothy Gordon video. We got all sorts of fun stuff to do. But listen, don't forget, if you're not against NFP, you're not on the team. So go out there, stay toxic.
Just as a me, like love. Just love. Lies. Lies. All sound familiar.